Arrived to our beautiful Zoom meeting about growing food today. So welcome. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. We're going to give ourselves a little bit more time for everybody to arrive. You guys are early. Good job for being on time or early to our class today. Hey. Awesome. Some really cool things on the bottom of the screen. It says go faster, go slower, raise hand. Those are all really helpful.
Yeah, tips. Let me see. I should make you co-host.
Yes, please, so I can share. Thanks for coming, guys. I'm gonna give a little bit more time. If you need to get a glass of water, you can go ahead and do that. If you want to get something to write with and a notepad, you can do that too. Okay.
So for all those people who can't join this morning, I will record this session and share it out to our distribution.
Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna probably get started about like 9:03 or 4. So you have a couple minutes. Just a show of hands, how many of you have ever grown something ever in your life? Have you ever grown anything in your life before? Nicholas? Yeah? Samantha, is that a yes? Tatiana? Awesome. What did you guys grow? Starting with Nicholas.
I grew a plant, but it never lasted long.
Well, you know, it's all an experiment. Samantha, what did you grow?
Tomatoes.
Oh, I love that. That must be really rewarding to pick a tomato that you grew yourself, right? Awesome. Tatiana, what did you grow?
Corn.
Corn. Now that's a hard crop. Good job. That is awesome. So if anybody else has grown anything in their life, you can raise your hand and we can hear what you have grown before. I know that a big thing right now is house plants. That's what a lot of people that I know are getting into growing things with. So they might be growing something called a golden pothos, which is a very common house plant, or a snake plant, or a succulent even, right? If you guys know what those are. But today we're going to be talking all about food and how we can grow some food and what that looks like. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys. My name is Miss Caroline. I am a farmer in Orlando, Florida, and I run a farming program called Fleet Farming. So we're going to see some pictures about what that looks like. We're going to talk about food and the system of that really quick. We're going to talk about our program. We're going to talk about gardening 101. So how you can grow food for yourself at home. And even if you wanted to work with someone to buy some seeds and start a garden, what do I plant right now? So we're going to be talking about that together. So like I said, we're going to give ourselves a couple more minutes. Thank you so much for attending today. Happy Earth Week. Yay, yes. Happy Earth Week. There's so many great things this week. Linda, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone here, I believe that you should be signed up for Earth Week Challenge with your teachers. So this is the 51st, so 51 years that we've been celebrating Earth Day. And we're using this whole week for action, and every day of the week you'll be learning about a different theme and taking a different action. And today is the first day of the week, so Meatless Monday is focused on the topic of food and how we can help, reduce greenhouse gas emissions by eating more plants and less meat, and also how we can help out by reducing food waste or eating more organic or locally grown foods. So that is the topic for today.
I'm hungry. I need some breakfast.
Hopefully you guys are going to try out different delicious vegan meals today. Does anyone want to share like some of their favorite vegan meals or what they plan to eat today?
Oh, Nicholas. Some strawberries. Good. Awesome. I'm gonna try out some pancakes. Michael
Plantain
has,
chips.
yeah, banana chips. Awesome.
Okay. So I think you can get started, Miss Caroline. Would you like me to do a quick introduction of you?
If you don't mind, I'll do a little introduction of myself.
Okay, that's great.
Awesome. So hi, everybody. I'm Miss Caroline. I am the Chief Operations Officer of an environmental nonprofit called Ideas for Us. That basically means that I help to run a lot of different environmental programming that helps make the planet a better place. And also, I am the program manager to an urban agriculture program called Fleet Farming. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit. I have my background in horticulture, which is the cultivation of plants. And I'm excited to talk to you about Gardening 101 today. So this is Fleet Farming and Ideas for Us. What my nonprofit does is basically we do work in 5 focus areas: energy, water, food, waste, and ecology. So it's a really fun job because we get to do a bunch of different things every single month that help to reduce waste or plant trees or do native landscaping. So it's a really fun thing that me and my team developed together. We saw a need and we decided to do something about it. So my question to you, and you can kind of think in your own mind, how does food get to your plate, right? It's not as simple as just going to the grocery store and buying a can of beans and then cooking them at home. There's a whole system that goes into this. And when you think about it, it's timed so perfectly for you to be able to have that food that's fresh and ready to eat, right? So we're going to go into this system really quick about how it works, just so then you can kind of connect the dots, right? So our food systems are these chains of actions that have to do with getting our food from the farm all the way until we come to waste, which is, getting rid of it, whether it be composting or even sending it to a landfill. So through this whole system, we can grow the plants on a farm, right? And there's so much that goes into this. This is kind of just a summary of the process. We can engage in some harvesting of the produce. I think this is really cool on the left-hand side. This is a machine that actually harvests carrots. It's technology that's been used to be able to grab the top of the carrots, and so then they can harvest it really fast. As well as this on the bottom where they have created a system where they can harvest beans super quick. And once a truck fills up, that truck can go back to the center for processing. But a lot of farm work is still done by people. So whenever you're eating your strawberries or maybe you're having a banana, you can think about the hands that went into growing that food, right? Because some people are still picking on the vegetables and fruits that we enjoy every day. Then that food gets transported, and that's where the really smart people have to come in to time it just right, so then it's ripe when it comes to the grocery store, right? So whether that's by air or by truck, our food has to be moved from one place to another. Then it's usually cleaned and processed. So this is where if they're going to freeze it, they wash it, dry it, and then freeze it. Or this is where they put the stickers on. So this is a really important part of the process. Sometimes the ugly vegetables get put to the side, right? The ones that don't look like the standard tomato or pepper. So then that creates a whole other side of the business of selling these fruits that don't really look like the other fruits, right? So once we process the food, then it goes to packing and putting it in the stores for us. So sometimes when we think about our plate of food, we go right here, right? But there's a whole process and tons of people that are involved in the process before we get to this. And then at the end of it, We can either, put it in the trash can at home that just sends it to a landfill, which is not so good because these landfills, they're so toxic. They have all this other types of garbage. They don't naturally let the food decompose, right? Or better yet, we can compost. Has anybody here ever heard about the word composting before? Show of hands. You can just physically raise your hand up and I can see. Has anybody here heard about the word composting before? Awesome. So a few students have heard of that before, but basically that means taking our food and turning it back into soil. Yes, you can turn fruits and vegetables back into beautiful soil, basically by mixing it with some compost, air, water, and some other materials. So then you can have a better footprint on the environment than just putting it in the garbage, because it can turn into something even better. So when we have our local food systems, like within our own communities, they can help with the environment, they can help people because it allows people to eat healthy food, right? And it can help economically for the older students, which means that we're supporting our local businesses and our local farmers rather than these big mega farms. So that's why when you go to a farmer's market, that is really good for the farmers, really good for the environment, and really good for our people. So raise your hand if you've ever been to a farmer's market before. You can physically raise your hand up in the air. You've been to a farmer's market, awesome. So thank you so much to support our farmers. That is really important, guys. So good job. So my question to you is, what kind of community do we want to live in? What kind of landscape do we want to create? Do we want to have our food so far away, only on these big farms? Or do we want to grow food in our neighborhoods? Do we want to walk down the street and be able to pick a pear off the tree, or go outside and harvest our salad for the day? That's what I want you to think about, because that's the world that we can create together, and it can be fun to do that too. So I run a program called Fleet Farming. That's us on our bicycles. Basically what we do is we transform the average American front or back lawn into a productive micro farm. And we do this by bicycle. We do this by bicycle so we don't have to use trucks or cars. We're really close together, so it's just easier to go by bike. So we're not emitting any fumes, we're not using any gasoline, we're using our people power to go from farm to farm. And we're farming with volunteers, students, people in the community to be able to grow food where it was just grass, right? I don't know about you, but for me, I know when I look throughout my neighborhood, I see so many just empty lots of grass. And my mind goes to, hey, I think we can grow food here instead. I think we could have a different system than what we have before. So we turn this, the average American lawn, there's nothing going on. It's not really helping animals, right? It's not really helping people. It's not really, in my eyes, that pretty. It's just something that is an opportunity, right? So we turn this into this. We'll put rows of vegetables. We'll put flowers and different types of crops. Like we have pumpkin right here. This is a fun Seminole pumpkin. It's a pumpkin from Florida. And we have different kinds of crops. So then we have a biodiversity of plants that are all edible. And we have 3 different parts of our program. If you're interested, you can learn more online. So Gardening 101, let's get down into it. What do we do to grow food? So first of all, why do we even have lawns, right? That's a question. Why do we even have them? Well, they were a status symbol in France and England. And it was basically to show your wealth. To show your wealth, you could show that you could pay for landscapers and that you didn't need to grow your own food. You didn't need to homestead. And now we're kind of going in the opposite direction, where now we're trying to homestead and to grow food instead of having lawns, right? Because we don't need them as a status symbol anymore. So lawns today, there's more than 40 million acres of lawns in America. That is so much space, right? That is so much areas of land that we could turn into farms. And did you know that 30 to 60% of a city's fresh water goes to watering lawns? When we're talking about how important water is, I don't know if you've heard about Water is Life and the different protests and things that we've done throughout America to fight for our water, right? Why are we putting it on the lawn when we could be using it to grow food, or we could be using it to just have in our natural environment, right? Also, lawns require a lot of fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, chemicals in general that can go through the earth and get into our water, or it can affect animals. And I know that you probably love animals as much as I do. So there's a different way that we can do this. So this is how we can grow food together. There's so many different places in our community that we can grow food, whether it's our front yard or our church or our community garden or schools, which is the best. I love growing at schools, in front of our local businesses and with other nonprofit groups. So there's a lot of different options of where we can grow. And now we need to determine how we're going to grow. So this is some examples of some small gardens. Say you have a small space in your backyard. I know I have a very small space. So this might be a good idea for me as a potted garden. Potted gardens are great. There is nothing wrong with potted garden. As long as you have a pot that has a hole in the bottom, so then when you water it, the water can come out of the bottom. This is a great way to start a garden. All you need is some potting soil. Potting soil is usually light and fluffy, and it's great for putting roots out for new plants. If you have cinder blocks, you can put plants in those. If you have window boxes, you can start with that. So there's a lot of different options that you can get started with. I would say find a sunny spot, find a good pot, put some potting soil in there, pick your seeds, and you are good to go. And we're going to learn about what seeds you can plant. We do the in-ground rows, which is more for us farmers, us urban farmers. It can be a little bit more harder to maintain, but easier when you're harvesting to kind of put a bin beside the row and cut these salad greens and put it right in the bin like farmers do. Or on the right-hand side, if you're lucky enough to have a raised bed garden, they are great. They look great. They can help to hold a lot of water in there. And they can help to prevent pests from being a little bit off of the ground, right? So there's another option, and you probably have never heard this before. Show of hands, you can physically raise your hands. Have you ever heard of the word permaculture before? Permaculture. Permaculture, and that's okay if you haven't. So permaculture means permanent agriculture. So that basically means that you are creating a forest of food. Think about Willy Wonka, but everything is edible. Edible plants, edible roots, and flowers. So these systems are really cool because they can be easier to maintain. It uses a lot of fruit trees and things like cassava, yucca, perennial spinach, which means of spinach that grows all year long. And it can also involve a lot of different types of berry bushes. Let me get my computer cord really quick. I just noticed that I need to get my computer cord. One moment, if that's okay, Linda. Linda, can you talk about permaculture while I'm gone, if you have any experience with that?
Yeah, I am not an experienced gardener. However, I have friends who are very much into this, and I find it fascinating. So it's like this, like mini, almost like a forest that you go into. So I think we have this idea in our mind of what farming looks like, which is like neat rows of crops. But permaculture is this idea of a system that works together. And so you go in there, it feels like a jungle, and but if you know what you're looking at, you're actually looking at different types of food all growing together and supporting each other. And it's like really planning out the space that you have and understanding, okay, well, this crop works well with this crop and can support this crop in this way. And almost having like a system in which year round, you are always having food being produced for you. So you can go and you can pick nuts, you can pick fruits, you can pick beans, whatever. And you're planning out like which crops need more sun versus shade. And, you know, even picking plants that are called like perennial plants, meaning a lot of times we think of plants having growing seasons, but there are actually some plants that grow year round. So you can constantly keep picking them and having food. That's pretty much all I know about permaculture. But I really want to set up a permaculture mini forest in my own backyard because I just moved to a new place with some land, thankfully. And I've seen some different permaculture forests that people have put up in their yard, and it looks amazing. Like you just walk through and it's just this jungle, basically. That's what it looks like to me.
Totally.
Yeah.
And Orlando Permaculture actually has some videos on YouTube where you can see what these forests look like. And it's just really cool to see in maybe a normal neighborhood, a backyard that is just wild, but not just wild with just native plants, but plants that you could eat from. And I think that is really cool. And so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to observe our environment. We're going to see, what is the soil like? What is the water like? Is there flooding in your area? Do you have full sun? That's the big question. Do you have full sun or partial sun? Is it a little shady, or do you have a big area for the plants to be able to photosynthesize and get that energy from the sun to create into sugars to change into energy? And also the wildlife. What do you see? Do you see red cardinals or Cuban anole lizards? Maybe if you're lucky enough, you'll see a black racer or a different type of reptile. So these are the questions too, you know, making sure that we have spaces for animals and we respect them and we leave them and we encourage animals to be able to have their own little environment while we are growing food, right? And also access to a water source is very important. So where's the hose? Is the hose near your garden? Because that might be really good to make sure that you're watering it more often. Or you can use a watering can. There's even ways that you can upcycle, maybe like a milk jug or a plastic container. You can put some holes in the top and use that as your watering can too. You can even decorate that. And then so deciding what your garden is going to look like also can look like some of these different options. I love fruit orchards. I love the idea of planting fruit trees next to each other and just being able to go down and pick different kinds of fruit together. Also, some people can use logs from the side of the road. Say that your neighbor took down a tree and they have all these different logs. You can actually make them into a shape of a garden box, fill that with soil, and plant in it. So these are some different options that we have to grow a garden, or my favorite, which is a potted garden. I love that. When we're removing grass, we can physically remove it. We can put a big tarp over it to kill the grass. It basically doesn't allow air for the grass to grow. So it once you pull up that tarp, it will become dry and brittle. So then you can easily use a shovel and get rid of the grass. But make sure that you ask an adult before you do that, because they might not want to get rid of the grass. So that's a good question to ask. And the last option that us farmers use and growers use is the idea of sheet mulching. So on top of your grass, you can even put cardboard and mulch or newspaper and mulch, and be able to basically start with zero grass that way. And then you can build on top of that. So there's a lot of different options. So when we talk about composting, there's different things like composters here that you can easily put your food scraps in, mix it with some leaves that you have. Maybe your neighbor collects their leaves in a big bag. What I do is I collect my food scraps throughout the week, and I will put a bucket of my food scraps in my compost bin. I have the turny one on the side, but you can just have a hole in the ground if that's what you have. I put my food scraps in, and then I add a couple handfuls of those leaves. I mix it around, and that is a really great option for starting a composter. So the idea with compost is that if you have layers like a lasagna of brown and green, things that are dead, like brown, like leaves, sticks, twigs, hay, and then green, things like your food waste, things that have a little bit more life to it, a little bit more moisture to them. When you mix them together over time with air and with a little bit of water, they can create into this beautiful soil. And basically you would do what I said about the brown and green on top of each other, but also you would just mix it in over time, and that creates soil. And that soil is amazing for growing plants. So you can add that to your garden whenever you want. And you can even mix it with water and make a compost tea. There's certain ways that you can do that if you're interested in that. Also, what do we add to the soil so then our plants can grow well, right? Because every plant needs certain nutrients to be able to thrive. And usually we see that on a periodic table of elements. We see some of those. We see nitrogen, we see phosphorus, we see potassium. Remember, potassium is something like that comes from bananas. Or calcium, something that comes from eggs and eggshells. Bananas and eggshells are great for the garden, but what else could we add as a soil amendment? Well, Miss Caroline's favorite is actually worm castings. So yes, worms can eat your compost. You can keep a worm bin if you want. There's information on how to do that online, and it's so fun to keep worms. I'm not afraid of worms. I don't know if you are, but I actually like holding them and checking them out. But the worms, when they eat the food waste and different organic materials, they do poop out really good amendments for the soil, and we call them castings. It's a nicer way of saying worm poop. So worm castings are added to the garden. They add the nutrients, they make the plants grow really well. And there's other things you can do. You can use bat guano, which is bat poop. You can use kelp meal, which is more organic and vegan. And kelp meal is basically like kelp from the ocean, grinded up really small and added to the garden. You can use things like biochar, which is like wood that is cooked for a long time. So it's kind of like charcoal-y, and you can break that up and put that into the garden. It can help with moisture and nutrients and things like that. So there's a couple hacks of why are some people better gardeners than other? Well, it might be something as simple as worm castings, using a little sprinkling of them whenever you go out into your garden, or any type of other soil amendment that you can find. So how do we actually garden, right? So if you have a raised bed or an area, you can start by using a pitchfork or a shovel to kind of move things around, breaking up old roots, getting it light and fluffy. You can add some organic material, add some compost, add some leaves, add some worm castings, whatever you have, mix it around, get it all set and ready to go. Or with a potted garden, you can dump out the pot, refill it with some fresh potting soil, and make sure that it has the holes in the bottom for drainage. So that's probably what you're going to do, and that's the best bet. If you wanted to create a path in your garden, you could also use cardboard and mulch, and you could even create like a curvy path that might be really cool. I've done some cool things with cardboard and mulch. And the cardboard, when it doesn't have the tape on it or any it doesn't have like any waxy coatings on it, it's just plain cardboard, it can actually disintegrate into the ground. So it can compost down too. So that's a good option if you wanted to walk on something that wasn't grass in your garden. The next thing is irrigation. So the easiest thing I'm just going to say for this is just to use your hose and to water it with the hose, or water it with your watering can. There's some other things that you can do. Some people put it connected to a timer. So you don't even have to water it. It waters itself every day. You have a timer, you have a hose, and then you have a sprinkler. And every day, whatever you set on that timer, it will water itself. So that's pretty cool. But if you don't have that, you can always use a hose or a watering can. So what do we plant this month? Well, April and May is awesome for getting ready for our summer gardens. So in whether you live in North, Central, or South Florida, you guys mostly live in South Florida, right? Yeah. So you guys are going to be able to seed your beans right now. So if you wanted to grow bush beans, lima beans, or pole beans, bush beans stay small, pole beans grow up like a vine. Or you can grow a chayote squash or different peas, southern peas. You could also transplant. That means like planting a bigger plant of something called amaranth or papaya, passion flower, or passion fruit, pineapple, sweet potatoes, or yucca. So pineapple is really cool because if you've ever had a pineapple and you've saved the top of the pineapple, you can actually plant that top, cut the top off, take off all the meat, put it in some water, let the roots grow out. And once that top has roots on it, you can plant that in a pot and grow your own pineapple. And it's so easy. I would definitely recommend that for you all. And something not and also mentioned is sweet potatoes. So if you go to the grocery store, you find a sweet potato, take it home, bury it, see what happens. Sweet potatoes are really great for the summer and a really good crop. They just need fluffy, light soil and they're good to go. If you've ever had a sweet potato for a long time in your kitchen too, you'll see that it starts to grow vines off of the potato. So those vines you can actually grow separate plants from, but also it means that it's ready to get planted and you can grow sweet potatoes. And also it says to transplant easily. So if you have a plant, you can gently put it into the soil of things like cabbage, gingers, sugarcane, and tropical spinaches. We have an awesome set of what's called perennial spinaches, or spinach that grows all year long. That's really great in really hot environments. What do I like to grow right now? I'm planting sunflowers because I love to see the flowers. I love to support the bees, and I like to eat the seeds as well. Sunflowers are really easy to grow too. So I'm growing a lot of sunflowers. And if you have any questions, you can raise your hand and we can answer them too. The next thing is like, how do I know what to plant with what, right? So we have something called companion planting, which means that certain crops do really well when they're planted together, and other crops don't really do that well when they're planted together. So whenever I start a garden, and if I'm going to put plants next to each other, I always type in Google, I say companion plants to tomatoes, and it will give you a list of plants that do well when they're planted together. An example of this is tomatoes and basil. We see that a lot in Italian cooking, but when they're planted together, they can grow better, they can have a better flavor, they can be stronger plants, and that's just because they're using different elements in the soil and different nutrients, so then they can support each other. A companion and a not companion example would be tomatoes and potatoes. When they're planted together, they can attract the same pests, and they can also compete for water and compete for nutrients. So we want to plant them away from each other. So you don't have to remember every single thing about that, but what you can do is if you wanted to plant plants right next to each other, you can type in on the computer and see what companion plants that you have to the crops that you're really trying to grow. And this picture on the right-hand side is just a really great example of that. So this person, and spot the duck. If you can spot the duck, you have won a prize. Spot the duck. Can you find the duck in the picture? I'll tell you why the duck's in there too. So this is a really good example. They've done companion plants all the way through their garden. So every plant that is next to another is a companion. So they're helping each other grow. And if you've spotted the duck is right here. And animals can be used in these systems naturally as a form of pest management. If you didn't know, ducks eat slugs. So if you have a slug problem, maybe you need some community ducks to come in and eat all those slugs up. So that's a good example of how animals can be in the system freely and to help manage a garden. And I also see some pigs or something over here in the back. Another thing that you can grow is fruit. Raise your hand if you love fruit. If you have some favorite fruits that you love. I love fruits too. Maybe you have a favorite fruit on the screen. Oh my goodness, there's so many, especially for those who live in South Florida. We are so lucky. You know why? Because we don't have to close for winter. We don't have snow that prevents us from growing these tropical plants. We can grow fruit all year long, y'all. We can grow mangoes, papayas, bananas, mulberry, Barbados cherries, loquats, even peaches here. There's a lot of different things we can grow. And guess what? It's actually kind of easier to grow fruit trees rather than some of our other crops, because all you have to do is create a hole in the ground that's 3 times as big as the root ball. So when you take it out of the pot, 3 times as big as that root ball, you dig the hole, you put the plant in, make sure that it's level with the ground. You fill in the native soil or the soil that you just took out of the hole, and you make sure to water it really good for like a month. And you are golden. You have fruit that will grow for years and years. And maybe that it'll be something that you grow when you're older as well. I know that certain plants like mulberries can live like 60 years. So it's pretty amazing that when you plant a tree, you're not only planting a tree for the oxygen, but for the food, and not just for you, but people after you, right? Because that tree is going to be there for a long time. So maybe this week or this month or this year, you can think about, what kind of tree would I want to plant? Does it grow in my area? And how can I get that planted? Because growing trees are probably one of the best things that we can do. Maintenance, how do I take care of my farm? Well, you can use something called a Scuffle Hoe, which is it's basically like a stick with like this kind of like loop that is sharp on the bottom. And when you stand up, you can put it underneath the plant and cut the plant from the bottom so you don't have to bend over, or you can just remove what we call pioneer species by hand. Remember, weeds are just a term for a plant that we don't know the name of. Maybe that weed is a plant that is a native flower or something really good for our environment. So we like to call them pioneer species. They're pioneering the area by putting their seeds out and growing, and you can remove them from your garden if you want. Also, we can use something like neem oil to help prevent pests. You can look more into that if you have questions about that, or sudsy soap is really good for preventing pests on your plants as well. If you want to grow your own transplants, I totally recommend this. I think it's so much fun. All you have to do is find a really sunny window, get this kind of system that has these little cubes for growing plants. They all have holes in the bottom. You put in your potting soil, you put in your seeds, and you get it ready to grow. You can have a spray bottle of water that gives a good misting of water to your plants. And once they get big enough and they start to get you know, tall, like maybe a couple inches tall, it's ready to put them out into more sunlight. They're going to need way more sunlight, and still keep them watered every day. So this is a really fun exercise if you're able to grow food at home in this way. And potting soil is always the best. I like organic potting soil. In flowers, I am obsessed with growing flowers. I think it's so rewarding. I love seeing the butterflies, the bees, the parasitic wasps, the different types of dragonflies and insects that are attracted to these flowers. So you can grow easy flowers to maintain, like dill, nasturtium, zinnia, sunflower, marigold, borage, even Spanish needle. You might see this throughout your neighborhood naturally. This is a Florida native plant that is very common and really good for the environment. And even passion flower. So this is what a passion flower looks like. And yes, they actually turn into a passion fruit. And if you've ever had passion fruit, it is so sour, but it is delicious and it has a lot of good vitamins for your body. So these are all great. And I'll mention too that dill and fennel attract different types of caterpillars and butterflies. The caterpillars will actually eat the plant, something like a black swallowtail butterfly. So if you're growing this, you're not only attracting caterpillars and butterflies, but you're attracting bees and other things in your garden too. Marigolds is the easiest to maintain. And zinnias and sunflowers are great for growing right now. And passion flower too. Awesome. So make sure that you see our websites. If you have any information that you want to check out for fleetfarming.org or our YouTube, we have a lot of videos on our YouTube for type in Fleet Farming, and we will be right there. So I want to ask you guys if you guys have any questions about anything that we covered today. Do you have any questions about what we talked about or anything that made you feel really excited about growing food? Sam? Sam, if you want to come off mute, you can tell us what you think. It says Sam Gurr.
The host wants to unmute me.
Oh, we can hear you now. Okay. Anybody else want to come on and share what they have learned or something that made them really excited about growing food? Sam, are you ready now? Sam?
Yes, I am.
Okay, awesome.
Growing food is actually important for the environment.
How so?
Because it actually represents like the world, because the world is actually very, the world is very, it's like natural, and it helps us survive through the pandemic. As you can see that the food is actually wasting, and food could actually help the environment for a bunch of stuff.
Totally. And one reason that is because when we're growing food closer to home, we're using less gasoline, less planes, less trucks to be able to grow that food. So exactly what you just said is that when we can grow food close to us and locally and ourselves, we can help the environment, we can help plants, we can help animals, we can help people. So that is all really good too. We're not taking farmland in some place like maybe the Amazon. We're growing food in our own neighborhoods in the land that we already have. So that, I love that you said all that. That was really great. Let's go to Mariana. What do you think, Mariana?
I was gonna say that would be good if you plant stuff at your house, because food might be too expensive because of the pandemic.
Really smart, Mariana. Yes. So if you grow food right outside your own door, it can be really cheap. When you think about seeds, seeds are like sometimes pennies each. So when you're growing your own food from seed, rather than going to the grocery store and maybe buying like a $6 watermelon or something like that, you can be saving a lot of money. And also, if you're growing your own herbs and your own salad greens outside, it can be pretty easy to grow, and you don't have to keep going to the store. You already have it in your front yard or your backyard, and you can save that money, especially during the pandemic. Very good, very good. Any other thoughts on growing food? Maybe how you would want to grow food at home, some plants that you saw that you were excited about, or how you would want to grow food. Nadia, did I see your hand? Nadia, did you want to share something? Go ahead. All right, I think Nadia's having a little technical difficulty over there. No
Nadia,
worries.
do you want me-
Anybody else want to raise their hand and share anything that they're excited to grow, or any thoughts that they have on growing food? You can just raise your hand and share it. Sam?
Sometimes my grandma has a garden outside of her door. So she grows like little strawberries and stuff like that. So she's like a gardener.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Raise
so-
your hand if you have a family member that is a gardener, that grows anything. Wow, look at how many of us. Awesome. So that's so cool that we can take that. We can take that as something that our family is passing down to us, right? And we can start to grow too. When I was growing up, my mom and my dad, they didn't know how to grow anything. So what happened is that I learned, and then I taught my parents, and then they taught their grandparents. And so we all started to grow food together. And so that's something that you can start as a kid, is to be able to grow food for your family, or start that tradition in your family as well. So show of hands too. How many of you, after talking about all this, you would want to grow food one day? Raise your hand if you would want to grow food one day after talking about all this. Whether it's a fruit tree or a potted garden or a raised bed, raise your hand if you want to grow food one day. Awesome. Yay, I love to hear that, you guys. Really great to be able to grow food. It's good for us, it's good for our animals, it's good for our people. Great. So thank you guys so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So you have an awesome week set up for you, Linda. I'll pass it over to you. Oh, I can't hear you.
Okay. Everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So thank you everyone for joining, and thank you, Caroline, for sharing all the knowledge that you have about starting our own gardening. And I personally learned a lot from it. I hope that everyone here was able to get something out of it, and now you feel inspired to start your own garden and make something productive out of the lawn that you might have, or the space that you have. So you know, if you have any questions or anything, please do reach out, and or use Google or use each other. I think sometimes it's helpful when someone starts it, and then you kind of learn through trial and error, and then you can help each other out and maybe share seeds or something.
Yeah. So any last questions for Miss Caroline about anything about my job or growing food or anything like that? Awesome. Go ahead, Sam.
What's your favorite thing about your job?
Ooh, I love being outside. I love animals. I'm a big animal person. I love seeing birds in the neighborhood. I raise my own butterflies. I really like all of that. So whenever I can be able to create a farm, basically, and to be able to grow food for our people, but also to grow native flowers around the garden, I see so much more life. And maybe we'll grow in an area where before I don't see any birds, I don't see any butterflies, I don't see any bees. And when I can do my job and grow things and grow flowers and see a difference in the biodiversity of an area, and I get to see the insects come back and the beetles in the soil and the worms, I feel like I'm doing my part in creating a better ecosystem for other organisms to live. We're tending the soil and we're creating more of a habitat, not just for growing food, but for the ecosystem at large. So that's what I really like. I really like seeing that I really can make a difference, especially in growing food in my neighborhood.
Mhm. Tiago has a question.
Yeah, Diago?
What
Tiago.
is your favorite thing to grow?
Ooh, I love that question. Good question. My favorite fruit tree is called a mulberry. It kind of looks like a blackberry, but it's very long and they grow so well and there's so many fruits on them. I just get so excited every time I see them because I can harvest like buckets of it. And I just love that tree. But for my other crop, I would say I really like growing sunflowers. I think sunflowers are easy plants to grow. They don't need a lot of nutrients or water or attention. But I've grown sunflowers that are bigger than my head. And when you can harvest them, it's really fun because basically the top of the flower will get really heavy with the seeds. You'll see like little lines on the sunflowers. You can cut the big head off of the sunflower, let it dry. And then it's really fun to kind of move the flowers off of the seeds. There's a flower attached to every seed and there's hundreds of seeds. So you can kind of move all the flowers off and then you can take it, rip it apart and have all your sunflower seeds. And I really like that because I like to eat them. I like to replant them, but also I put them in my bird feeder and I'll just fill up my bird feeder with the sunflower seeds that I grew. So that's one of my favorite things to grow for sure. And it's called a mammoth sunflower, the big ones. Ooh, those are great. Nadia says, what is your favorite things about gardens? I just like being outside. I like feeling the wind. I like seeing the different weather for the day. I like I said, seeing animals and just feeling connected to the earth because sometimes it can make me a little sad if I'm staying inside all day. I just can feel like a little bored, right? But when you're outside and you're in nature, there's a whole world out there. And it can be really nice to just lay in the grass and just think and feel the wind and look at the clouds. So I like all of that about gardening and gardens. Sam said, what is your dream job? I'm doing my dream job actually. So I love growing food, but also with my other part of my nonprofit, I get to plant trees. I get to plant native plants around waterways. So if you've ever seen someone mow all the way down to the water line, that's really not good for the environment. We like to replant native plants around there to create ecosystems. We get to see animals come back to areas because of that. I also get to work on different solar energy projects. I get to work on different things that help to reduce waste. We do waste cleanups in our environment, whether that's on a canoe in a natural waterway, or if that's in a forest. So I'm living my dream job right now. I get to work for an environmental nonprofit. I get to save the planet every day. So definitely, I'm very happy with what I've done. And it's something that you can build. You can create your dream job too. Maybe your favorite thing is that you love Florida Panthers. So you can create a life where you are helping to protect the Florida Panther. Or maybe you really like native landscaping and planting wildflowers. That can be your job too. So it can really be whatever you see as is important. You can make that into a career that can make you happy. Like my job makes me happy. Awesome. Any other questions that we have before we go?
I have a question.
Yes.
So how difficult would it be, or how much time would it take to start to make your yard a permaculture forest?
Ooh, so it's really, a little goes a long way, right? Every day you're going out there, maybe you're planting a tree that your neighbor gave you, or maybe you go to your friend's house and you cut some basil off of the plant and you can put that in water at home to grow roots and add that to your garden. So it really is a long process, but every little bit that you do is great. So you can plant a plant, put some mulch around the base of it to help with the moisture. And then, in a couple of days, add another, and maybe something doesn't work, and maybe something does. So adding a forest of food, it's like a long process, but it can be really fun to build that, especially if you have friends who are into growing food too, and you guys can swap things and grow different crops for each other.
I have another question. So,
Mhm.
you know, there's food, like you can grow stuff for food and then also for pollinators. Is it helpful to put like a pollinator garden next to your food garden?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So you can add something like a little bee hotel. It's like a piece of wood that has holes in it because not all bees live in a beehive. Some of them, like our mason bees or carpenter bees, they're more solitary bees. So you can, if you're looking for like a little birthday present, those are really fun. But also, like you said, adding your wildflowers and your flowers in general next to where you're growing food is awesome for pollinating your plants, maybe making more tomatoes because of that pollination, right? But also having that for the insects and the environment to be able to take the pollen and the nectar from. So yeah, definitely add flowers everywhere. And Amaya also asks, is there a negative effect in gardening? So I don't really think there's a negative effect in gardening because you're growing food that you're going to need anyways. And also it's tending to the environment. If it's between lawns and gardening, I would say that there's no negative effect. Maybe something like, maybe if your soil is really acidic, maybe you're growing blueberries or something and it's really acidic, maybe that can affect, or maybe you have a lot of mushroom compost, which can be really intense for if that seepage can get into waterways. But in the normal garden where you have like a good balance of the soil, I think that it's a good a positive effect more so than a negative. Any other questions, Sam?
Have you ever got bitten or stung by any animal?
Good question. Never have I ever gotten stung or bit by an animal when I was farming. Never. I like to really respect nature. If I see a wasp or something or a bee, I won't swat it away, right? I'll just kind of remain calm. If it wants to land on me, that's okay. And I just kind of move on. Something that is a little pesky is a horsefly. Sometimes they will really get into your face and they will try to get you. But for the most part, I think that people are really afraid of bees because they have allergies and they don't want to, they don't want to be affected by that. But I think sometimes it's more of in our head than it actually is of a danger to us in actuality, right? Because the bees, when they sting you, that's the end of their life. And it kind of isn't going to happen unless a bee is really feeling threatened. So as long as you're calm in the garden and you're kind of hanging out and you're respectful of nature, maybe if you see a snake, you're not going to get up in its face or anything like that. Then, there's not as many dangers in the garden as you would think. So no, I've never been stung or bit by anything. So thankfully, except for mosquitoes. Mosquitoes, yes. But we all know they just do what they want. But guess what eats mosquitoes is bats. So if we had something like a bat house near our farms, maybe we would see less mosquitoes that could bite us. Bats can actually eat 1,000 mosquitoes an hour is what I've heard.
I also heard dragonflies are really good at eating mosquitoes.
Oh, really? I didn't know that they eat mosquitoes.
And apparently you
Wow.
can create your own little pond for dragonflies because they like to, I guess, lay eggs in under these leaves, like big lily pads.
Yeah. Awesome. And Joseph asks, what do you see when you see a snake in the garden? Well, first of all, I get really excited because I really like snakes. I'm not one that will ever hold a snake. No, I respect them too much. I am a little fearful of them. But I basically just watch them. I just watch them. I stay a nice distance away from them and I just let them relax into the environment. It's nice to see an animal relaxed into in the garden, right? To see what they would do if they're not in fight or flight mode, right? If you're scared of the snake and you don't want the snake in your garden, typically snakes like areas that have like piles of sticks or leaves. So if you wanted to have maybe a section of your yard where you have those sticks and leaves for the snake, maybe that would be better than having them near your garden. But yeah, if I would just stay at a nice respectful distance, watch them, get to admire them. And if you want to attract them to a different part of your yard, you can add piles of sticks and leaves over there, and maybe they'll choose that area instead of the area that you're trying to grow your food in. Linda also asks, Yes. So the next thing I want to share is that we're doing a summer camp with ideas for us. So if you wanted to learn more from Miss Caroline about renewable energy, how to protect our local waterways, how to reduce waste, about Florida ecology at large, what kind of ecosystems and habitats we have, and more about growing food, I'm doing an online summer camp with ideas for us. You can tell your parents about Save the Planet Summer Camp. We have a website. It's savethisplanetsummercamp.weebly.com. Or you can just type in Google Save the Planet Summer Camp Ideas for Us. If you have notes and you want to look that up, you can look that up too. But it's going to be 5 days online, a couple hours every day, and you're going to be able to learn about how to save the planet in Florida. So if you're interested in that, please check that out. It's going to be so much fun. We have activities and games and everything. So I would love to see all of you there.
Is that the right link?
It's not the right link. Well, actually, I think it is. Yes.
It says idea for us.
Yes, I bought the domain. Yep, that's us, SaveThePlanetSummerCamp.com. Mari asks, we have a garden in our class and we plant tomatoes, peppers, and flowers. Mari, that is so great. I love all those things, especially planted together. That's so cool that you get to do that in school. I wish I got to do that in school at your age. And then Sam, did you have one last thing you want to say?
Yeah, what happens when you see an unusual animal? What would you do?
Like I said, I would have a respectful distance. I would stay quiet. I would kind of get down and watch it and see what it's going to do. I've had marsh rabbits in my garden. I've had raccoons, possums, and I just get so excited to see animals because this is their environment, right? We should be seeing animals in our gardens. If we see something like black bears or panthers, that's a different story. Maybe we need to make sure that our trash is being secured so they're not getting into our trash cans, right? But yeah, if you see animals in your garden, especially smaller animals, I think that's a good thing. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I had so much fun talking with all of you. I hope to see you at our summer camp.
Yes.
Thanks to teachers as well.
Yes. So everyone, let's thank Miss Caroline for her time today and for sharing the information that she has.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go plant something.
Thank you.
Get out there and plant some seeds, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, we will.
Woohoo!
Some of us had to leave because we had a fire drill, so.
Oh, no worries.
Great.
Oh, thank you, Genesis, Michael. Joseph, is it good to have a Venus flytrap in your garden? Yeah, that's really cool. That's a cool plant, a Venus flytrap. Oh yeah. Thank you, Jaden. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, everybody. Awesome. And I will talk to you guys later.
Thank you for
Thanks,
joining.
Linda.
Have a good week.
Bye.
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 Okay.
Bye.
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 Bye. Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Hi, amigas. Adios.
Thanks for joining. All right. Bye.